Welcome back. Talking about subnational government budgeting process in Nigeria, it is one of those activities that is suspended by from state governors to carry it out. Talking about budget is the yearly or annual provision of funds for the state, either way of recurrent expenditure or capital expenditure. And most times, this information about the budget is considered as one of those litmus tests for state governors, either to showcase those policies or programs to the state resident and indigene. But here in Nigeria, we had issue with those budgets in the past to the point that most citizens or residents of the state are not aware of subnational government, that is state government budget. But most times we are so concerned about the federal government budget. But this time around, we want to step it down to the importance of subnational government. Why we need to follow up on state government of where we reside or where we come from. Talking about resident or indigene of a state, because most times those information about the project that the state wants to carry out are itemized, are put together in those state budget. But here we are, most citizens or residents will complain the particular government is not performing, or the particular government has neglected them. But the main way to be able to follow on government activities is to understand if they are make provision from those projects in their budget. And that's why on this show today, we want to extract the significance of subnational budget, the process of this budget at the state level, and what are the challenges of this budget at the state level. So joining me right now is Comrade Tunde Salman. Comrade, a good day to have you on the show, sir.
My brother, and good afternoon to your listener and viewers.
For you, Comrade, how have you been able to assess Nigerian budgeting system? Or what do you make of the Nigerian budgeting system? Let me put it that way.
I think as an observer within the civic space who have been engaging the public finance management for over some few years now, the process is still highly technical and it is not that sufficiently participatory, particularly at the federal level. What I mean by that is that, yes, there are avenues in which the process supposed to engage with the citizens, including at the formulation stage, where citizens supposed to also get insight on the broad objective of the budget through mechanisms such as the medium-term expenditure framework, or those who are working at the sectoral level, the sector strategy framework, and the actual budget process. Many people or the government themselves too also wait till maybe at advanced stage of the process before actually engaging stakeholders. You understand what I mean by that? Many people only waited, or the government themselves only waited to when the budget is presented to the National Assembly before the people get wind or are aware about the document. And at that period, it's already too late in the processes that is always lined up for budget process. That's at the federal level. That's why I said that, yes, there were efforts to make it more participatory by consulting with the people, but in spite of that, they do wait till midway into the budget in circle before people actually get to know about the budget. But at subnational level, it's a different ballgame.
Majority of us, either as an analyst, economist, or someone who is interested in government, our concentration has been on the federal government budgeting side. But as rightly pointed out, there has been an initiative to ensure that people participate. But because of the concern or what we are also having in regards to state government budget, and that's why we are doing an advocacy and enlightenment in that regard. And someone like you who has been around that corridor of engaging those at subnational level and federal government level in terms of budgeting system, and that's why we bring you on the show today. Now, let's take this issue one after the other. There's something that you said that's very critical. Why is it that we are making our budgeting system too technical to allow citizens to understand the basic items in those budgets? So why are we so making, why our budgeting system too technical?
Process is actually both a technical and political process. You understand? The technical elements of it are the people in the budget, national budget office, and various ministry who are looking at the technical details and the technical dimension of it. But the political dimension of it should involve the people in terms of setting the framework of what should be spending the money on, or what kind of taxes that people should pay, what they shouldn't pay. These are some of the things that is also more of political in terms of the political economy to arrive at a collective decision. But in terms of the nitty gritty, it involves a lot of addition, subtractions, and what have you, which are technical in nature. You cannot divulge the technicality of it, but there have been efforts to demystify the technical process. That's why you have seen initiatives like the Open Government Partnership, wherein the government and other partners come about in develop what they call citizens budgets, which is like a reader-friendly versions of that technical document where people can understand the budget process, where the money comes from, where the money goes, what are those priority spending areas, and what have you. It is those ones that's summarized in pictorial format in the highly technical process that is involved. And a whole lot of people have tried also, particularly from civil society, to demystify the process through increasing citizens' budget literacy. So I think those are some of the instances that have come across where efforts, deliberate efforts have been made to demystify the highly technical nature of the budget process so that an average citizen or other stakeholders can follow the process, that can understand the issue, they can know how much are being budgeted for what and where the money will come. You understand? Those are the efforts that have been made over the few years. But most of those efforts sometimes may not be sufficient enough. That's why I'm using sufficient participatory, or or there may not be routinized in the sense that maybe it comes once in a while, subsequent year the incentives is not there again. Particularly if you go down to subnational level, you see that there was no deliberate effort, so to say, to ensure that citizens understands the budget and follow through the budget. Though some states may have a more open budget approach than some other states. You understand? Unlike the federal, where you can just look at one single entity in terms of maybe the Ministry of National Budget, Ministry of Planning and National Budget, and the National Assembly various committees. But at the state level, we are talking of 36 states plus FCT. We are talking of even below the state level, local government, where people may not even know that they also do budget, public budget annually.
Also, the market report is that this is the period that most state governors will be submitting their state budget to their state House of Assembly. And information reaching the market report suggests that, and some states have already penned down next week to begin to submit their budget to their state House of Assembly. But one key question that will come out of this submission is this: how much of the resident indigene are carried along when it comes to this submission? Or let's even take a look at even the input themselves. How do they normally come across or come to the conclusion of the input of their budgeting item? Can you help us to understand in the regards of subnational government?
At subnational level, there were attempts in the past. I don't know whether it's still obtainable now, especially during the implementation of SafePass, a World Bank project that is the disbursement link indicator that incentivizes the state government to open their budget process. You understand? Through that mechanism or through that intervention, every state that were part of that program, they make sure that citizens are part of the project process, because these are some of the tick indicators they need to mark them before they release certain level of funds to them. One of its mechanisms they have used is through this budget consultation process. which can happen at the state level, at the general state level, maybe in the state capital of the state that were part of the SIFTAS program, or take it below the state level to senatorial level, where they can take budget related issues to town hall meetings at the senatorial level, where some of the parameters of budget, the key priorities of states for that year are put to the table. Yes, some of those things, some people also criticize them that they are just tokenism, that no serious rigorous work can be done at that level, that is just like a deliberate talk show so that they will convince the World Bank and other partners they are doing what should be done. But beyond that, we have also seen deliberate efforts on the part of some civil society in some states, because it's also boils down to issue of capacity. And capacity is not only about technical resources to mobilize yourself, to organize yourself, is part of capacity. There are some states where partners, because of the convergence of partners who are working in that state, they might have capacitated civil society and other civic actors to ensure they follow the process methodically. Take, for instance, states like Jigawa and Kaduna State, where partners like FCDO have been supporting them for over the years, have been able to build a kind of a budget network group where citizens also work with themselves across sectoral space. It could be in education, it could be in water resources or health, and follow the process from the policy to the planning, as to planning policy and budget. And at the end of the day, they work closely with the government. In some other states, people just, okay, oh, they just have a kind of maybe announcer, a kind of public service announcer on radio or TV, that, okay, this is what is happening. And people will go there. It turned out to just a market square kind of discussion where no meaningful engagement will take place, but they still will still fulfill the all righteousness that they have tabled those things before the public. Those are some of the things I've seen. And since the end of that SIFTAS program, though there are successor programs that have also they've started rolled out, many of the gain that we can say we have made during those years of SIFTAS, that deliberately they will even call you for bilateral budgets in defense between the MDAs and the Ministry of Budget to witness as an observer. I'm not sure many of the states are still doing it. If they are doing it, maybe it was, as I said, it's not that rigorous. Though there are some places where maybe because of the governors or some other people who are interested in genuine public finance management reforms, that they want the citizens to use, you understand, you see those kind of efforts. But by and large, going by the work that organizations like CDOC have done in terms of open budget partnerships, of open budget index, that they normally rank the states in terms of budget openness. We have seen that many of them have not performed significantly. Some of the states that have also performed well in terms of budget transparency and budget participation, people are now asking, with those level of transparency and participation, have have they really translated to improved life on the citizen? Because the way the open budget partners define budget transparency is when critical budget documents are uploaded online. You understand? They say produce and uploaded online so that you can go and access. And we know the digital literacy is still low. You understand? There are those that they can produce, they might have produced the document, but it's not uploaded online. They won't get the full mark in the assessment. But those who produce the document, upload them online, you understand? They will have the full mark in terms of at least budget accessibility, in terms of transparency, meaning that you can go to the website, click on the state budget portal, and download some of those key budget documents. That has fulfilled their own definition of transparency. But some want to go beyond that, to look at the content of those documents that have been published. How user friendly are they? Open data and ODC kind of data, where people can do data interoperability, data analysis, and what have you. These are some of the different dimensions when you come to subnational level budget transparency, budget participation, and budget accountability. You understand? Those are the things I have seen. The states are not at the same level of transparency. Even at that level of limited definition of budget openness, budget transparency, many states are not there. Most of those states who were part of SafeTAS, some of them have not sustained that engagement. Some of them have refused to publish citizens budget that summarize and with infographics the technical budget, or citizen accountability report that was like a kind of versions of auditor general's report of the state. You know, these are some of the things that I think I've come across in my little time of engaging the subnational budget process in the country.
Between 2015 and 2018. And I also saw a bit of it between late 2021 and 2020, although many complained that maybe because of the COVID-19 period, that funding initiative, ceased. But for subnational government at this point in time, how can we deepen participatory of citizens and residents as well as indigenous of the state? Because for someone like you who have been in that corridor, you have seen the gaps, you have seen the challenges, but how can we deepen their participation? Either for the political reason or for the issue around accountability purposes.
I think the space that has been opened should not be closed. We may say it's a tokenism if you do maybe one-off budget engagement at the state level, in terms of maybe you assemble in the state capital and they say, okay, we are doing budget town hall, or they further take it to subnational level. That is welcome. But beyond that, actors, civic actors in each state should prioritize issues on public finance management. Because as I used to mention, aside the constitution, budget is the second most important public policy instrument, because it is in budgets that political promises, political promises are converted into programs and projects that they will implement. If people are not following the budget, are not engaging the budget, there is a lot they may be missing. Even if you want to do evidence-based advocacy and engagement, you need some level of budget literacy. At the level of civil society and other civic groups, including the labor movement, the ASU, and whatever, you need to come together to form a more stronger budget network where issues around capacity can be mobilized. You see some people who have technical capacities in arithmetic, in statistics. You see some people who may have capacity in sectoral issues. They can dive deeper on some of those issues, so that rather than engaging the issues or process at the surface, you have a kind of structure, a kind of citizens-led structure that are like accountability mechanism that you can use to engage the process, so that issues around capacity building can come there, issues around mobilization of citizens can come there, issues around even budget monitoring, issues going beyond the budget to procurement. How do you understand the procurement process and what have you? You need citizens group themselves also need that kind of capacity. That's why the role of civil society cannot be emphasized in all this, because civil society now fulfill that role, trying to bridge the knowledge, the highly technical knowledge documents and knowledge, a highly technical budget process and the budget document, demystify it further for citizens, the grassroots, the market women, the youth group, the community leader who may not actually have that level of technical know-how or competencies. That's why it is important for each state or the existing structures around budget network to be revitalized, so that we don't need to wait for donor. Even among ourselves, we should be able to take this issue of budget process at subnational level more serious, particularly now that we are now talking about even local government autonomy. You understand? If you said the federal budget process is one that everybody have engaged to some extent, we need more people to engage the subnationals, the states, the local government, and people who are resident in those states, because it may be difficult for one organization in Abuja to oversee what is happening at 36 states plus one of the federations, or 774 local government. No matter how you say you want to try, what you will eventually do will now be a kind of sampling, so that you take a representative sampling. But if you can have a vanguard of people or committed budget fellows, if you can call them any name, in the communities where people reside, in the local government where people reside, you understand, in the states where people reside, some of this technical knowledge you think you have mobilized, you can now step it down. But that commitment must be there. People must see it. We want to engage this thing. We want to demystify this process. We want to know how the public policies are being framed, formulated, how they are being implemented, what are the importance of the budget to those issues, the importance of procurement to those issues, the importance of the auditors general's report to some of those issues, so that you can ensure.
I hope Comrade will be back with us on his thought and where it's going, particularly transparency that he has just mentioned. And that will definitely lead me to my next question I'll be putting across to him when it come up. Talking about transparency of the budgeting process of subnational government. A lot of questions have been asked in that regard, particularly apart from engaging the citizen, apart from engaging the resident of the state on the budgeting process. One of the key problems is that even though after engaging them, because from what Comrade have been pointing at, after engaging them, either budget town hall meeting, which many people consider as tokenism or whatever they may consider it, but the key question to remember, the implementation of this budget lies on a transparency. Comrade, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Oh, so sorry for that. But okay, we still have that challenge issue. But for Comrade, it's about showing commitment from the subnational government. You know, a lot of focus have been on federal government budget here in Abuja, but state government, 36 of them, including the FCT, also have their individual budget that is in place. Particularly, as Comrade pointed out, apart from the Constitution of Nigeria, the next document that is very, very relevant for every resident and citizen to take on is the budgeting document of the state. Comrade, are you back with us?
Okay, too.
We can't hear you here, but go ahead with your thought.
I can't hear you properly too. Can you repeat your question?
You are there, you stop on transparency and accountability of the budgeting process at the subnational government. So go ahead with that, sir.
To say is that at the subnational level, we also need to stimulate demand for accountability. We need to get more citizens to be interested in what government is doing at that level. And one of the ways to get it is to ensure that the space that have already been opened should not be closed, and the people should also optimize those spaces. You understand, by building the capacity of a new set of actors in terms of civic actors among the youths, using technology, using those tools to advance their budget advocacies and budget research skills, so that we can be able to engage the budget process more methodically at the state level, beyond the superficial dimension that it has always been.
Those pertinent questions that normally comes to the mind of every Nigerian when it comes to this budget. There's a situation whereby a particular state government may not put as budget item road construction in a state or in a community, but one way or the other, we see people agitating that the government have neglected them. What do you think have really happened in this scenario?
Yeah, budget itself is largely a political decisions. You understand? It has the technical dimension of it, are the one that the technocrats in the Ministry of Budget and Planning will lead the process. But the dimensions of who gets what, when and how are political decisions. And in shaping that political decision, the citizens has a role to play there. And that is why we are calling for citizens to show more commitment, show more interest, and build their own capacity to engage the budget process more methodically. So that at the end of the day, you can be able to generate evidence that there is no equity in this spending plan. There is a need to balance all more. There is a need to also ensure gender balancing using gender responsive budgets. But if you don't understand some of these issues, you can't engage at that level. That is why it is very, very important. And the issue that also deals with accountability in terms of the resources being spent. You also need capacity in in public procurement to be able to know whether they are actually following the procurement rules, or what rules or guideline guides their tendering process and what have you, or whether the contractors, for instance, are implementing the contract they have gotten through the budget to the specification in the bill of quantity that they have agreed or signed up with. It requires a whole lot of activities. You understand that it's not a rocket science. If people show more attention and dedication, they can be able to engage this. You understand? But society is dynamic. As core of people who have been built capacity moves on, the other set of people coming, they must find a mentorship or a kind of training opportunity that will sustain this core of dedicated Nigerians at various level to engage the public budget process in their respective locations.
Most times when you engage people, they'll tell you that government have neglected them. But they don't know that they have a role to play when it comes to engaging the government, particularly on the issue of budgeting. So when a particular community felt neglected, that the government is not taking care of them, there's no provision for any infrastructure in the government for them, they get anger. And when election come, they normally vent their anger through voting. But still going further into the discussion, particularly the technical aspect, which you also mentioned in a way, talking about public accountability. Most citizens and residents will wonder, what kind of public accountability do we really need so that subnational government can sit and do what is needful when it comes to budget implementation?
Accountability mechanisms or measures that can be put in place. The officials ones are there used through both the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly, where we have the Public Account Committee that will deliberate on the report of the Office Auditor General of the Federation or the state, as the case may be, even at the local government. Those are statutory oversight bodies or statutory supreme audit institutions. But beyond that, we also have social accountability mechanism where civic or citizens in themselves monitor what government is doing, either monitoring the budget implementation through forming themselves into fangers of public project monitors in their various community, or as even following the money from the treasury to different MDAs. You understand? There are many ways. After that, you can also form a kind of maybe citizen tribunal or generate a scorecard or any other tools of your choice that you can document your evidence, and you launch your report and engage the media with those reports to see that this is the finding you have done, this is the methodology you have used to assess this. You understand? At the end of the day, the states, the actors will take you more serious, that you are engaging this thing from constructively, not as a political blackmailing tool kind of a thing, that you've done your homework and you are following the work better. And there are a lot of citizens in different states. They are doing this in Jigawa, as I said, in Kaduna, in Kwara, in the southeast. We have platforms that have been established purposefully to engage these processes. But individual, there are dynamism, as I said. People moved on to other things. Then how do we ensure that knowledge gap that knowledge is not in, there are no gaps in knowledge when people transit from one place to another, for either for personal growth or for whatever, you understand? Because the society is a growing concern, and the human being within the society at every time must be able to ensure that public resources are actually being made to work for the public or for the common goods.
someone like you have been in that corridor for a very long time. And having said so much in terms of transparency, public accountability, and the procurement aspect, for you, how can we break down the issue of procurement law in a simplified way for Nigerians to understand? Because when you talk about procurement, what comes to people's mind is that go and collect contract from government and use the money. But practically, how can we ensure that Nigerians understand procurement processes and its relevant in budgeting process in Nigeria?
I think there are a lot of groups or platforms that have tried to also go deeper into procurement and demystify the procurement, even using digital tools in terms of technologies. When you talk about open contracting process, open contracting data system, these are technology-driven tools to make procurement information, what is it called, proactive disclosure of procurement information. And in the national procurement or state procurement laws, there are also mechanisms or processes that have been outlined that for every entity that will use public resources, you must have a procurement plan. That procurement plan must be linked to budget, that there must be budgeted resources for whatever you want to procure. You must have a procurement department or procurement technical unit who organizes this procurement process. Because procurement is not now. That's where there are issues now. I said budget is largely a political decision. Procurement is not a political decision, it's more of a technical decision. But the process is that the politicians always want to make it a political decision. Rather than people getting joy on the merits of what they can do or what they can offer, it is actually somehow through who they know, so to say. That's why the call for the constitution of National Procurement Council over the years have not gone too far. You understand? No president has had that political will to actually constitute the council so that they will not disentangle procurement decisions from the Federal Executive Council meeting or process or from the State Executive Council. You understand? So that it will no longer be a political decision. It will be more professional technical decision. That's one dimension to it. And the process, what are the methods they are following when they are talking about procurement? You understand? The procurement law said open competitive bidding should be the default, but many MDAs will go to BPP to go and get waiver to use other method of procuring. These are some of the gaps that people are also exploiting in procurement. You now have formal procedural rules, but in terms of real practice, a lot of things are still going on, and that is where corruption risk is high in terms of procurement. Well, it is the convergence of procurement is not the venue or the avenue where both the public and the private sector converge, because most of the project that government will implement, unless they are doing direct work, they will prosecute it through contracting it out. And who are the people who get the job? Are contractors. They are private sector entities. That's why the corruption risk in the procurement is very, very high. And the efforts have been made to actually reduce the contacts with the people and make it digital process. In spite of those efforts, there are still a lot of issues within our procurement. And the kind of space that the procurement law, the external procurement law allowed for civil society is also limited. Limited in the sense that civil society only have opportunity to observe the bids opening. There is no opportunity to also observe the technical evaluation. Imagine now, after you observe the bid opening, you form your opinion and report to your entity or to BPP, the Bureau of Public Procurement. If you have opportunity just to sit down where they are doing the technical review of those who have submitted their bids, you understand that your presence there, even if you are not speaking, you understand, can go a long way. Or if they cannot allow civic actors, they used to have anti-corruption index in many MDAs. To what extent those anti-corruption desk officers participate in the procurement process as an observer? What are the kind of reforms? Otherwise, we won't have this kind of audits. Auditor General's report indicting the procurement processes in many MDAs as notorious, habitually disregarding the law. These are some of those issues. But if you see citizens group who are still troubling to understand the budget process, they are now talking of procurement, which is now a technical professional field. Even for government officers who have moved to procurement cadre, there are still need for them to undergo more periodic training and capacity building. These are some of the things that I can say as an observer from distance. But I still believe there are people who are knowledgeable enough. You can't know everything, but whatever you know, you can bring it to collective goods. You understand? You can lead on that process where other people brings their own competencies in other areas, so that it form a kind of nucleus of vanguard that can work and monitor those processes more methodically.
Question from you, Comrade Tunde Salman, having been my guest for today. And Comrade, I really want to appreciate you for coming in and putting those points in a way that I believe many of our viewers will understand the essence of subnational budget and particularly the technicality of it, which we have also broken down into a simplified way for us to understand. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, sir. Well, Comrade Tunde Salman there speaking on subnational government budgeting process in Nigeria. We really need to appreciate him for coming on the show. And for many of you out there that watched the show today, it's all about you being, one of those citizen vanguard organization looking at what the government is doing at the subnational level, particularly the money they're budgeting for infrastructure, for education, for health and others. We need to follow the money according to Comrade Tunde Salman. This is the size of our show today, talking about the market report on ADBN television. I thank every one of you that have stayed tuned to watch the market report ADBN television. My name is Adefolayan Olamide. We'll come your way with another exciting, informing, and educating discussion. See you around soon. Bye for now.